Good morning.
Good morning. It's nice to see you. I hope you had a great, relaxed weekend.
3 days.
I know, huh?
Loved it.
Uh-oh. Here he comes. Well, I'm really glad to hear that. We had a good, relaxing 3 days too, and now it's back to the work week. So here we are with questions for dear Dr. Rosensweet. So I'm going to welcome you for sure, and welcome all the women that are going to be coming up, and maybe men. And I'm going to go ahead and get started. Is that okay?
Sure, yeah.
Okay, great. So, question number 1. Hello, Dr. Rosensweet. I am 55 years old, and I'm wondering if certain hormones can make my clinical and environmental whatever that word is. Don't ask me to spell it. Environmental worse. If so, what would be the best thing to help?
In general, when people are having symptoms in the menopausal age demographic, and we get the hormones proper and exact and optimal for the individual, and we individualize them, we do the proper hormones properly and optimally for an individual woman, the most common thing that ever happens is health improvement. And only health improvement. If there's not health improvement, or if something unusual develops, something's wrong. And if it relates to the hormones, it's usually because the dosages are wrong, the balances are wrong. So the only acceptable outcome from hormonal treatment is improvement. Something else, something's off. Now, as far as environmental stuff goes, I mean, some people very rarely, over 13 years, we've had 2 instances where someone was actually allergic to the base that we put our organic oils hormones in. I don't know what hormones your questioner is talking about, but these are certified organic oils in the menopause method. And twice we've had mild skin reactions and we had to switch delivery systems. But we're talking twice in like thousands and thousands of applications of hormones. So environmentally, you should only do better. Now, does your environmental issues play into hormonal balance? Well, they can. So many of these environmental toxins, wouldn't you know it, they gum up the hormonal receptor sites. Of all the things in the world that they could do.
Right.
In fact, they've even got an official name called xenoestrogens. Many environmental toxins, many things that may be living in your kitchen sink or in your bathroom cleaners or in your closets or in your dryer stuff or all kinds of household stuff is not okay. Just to cut to the chase, we've broken our house down into clear distilled vinegar and some kind of cleanser, and you can use baking soda for that matter. And not a lot else. Pure laundry soap, free and clear. And same with dish soap, same with hand soaps. We're very, very selective about anything that we put on our skin or that we put into our air or anything like that. So can environmental issues interfere with your hormonal situation? Yes, they can.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and so there's programs for that, though, because anything is healable, is potentially healable. So, that's what I have to say about environmental sensitivity and hormone.
Got it. Well, thank you. It's a good answer. And yeah, lots of, as you say, moving parts and lots of moving parts on the outside, right?
Yeah, geez.
Definitely on our inside. Yeah. And a Facebook user just came up and said that is really something to think about. And it really is. It really,
Yeah,
really
it is. You know, we've lived with this stuff for so long that we think it's just all natural. Yeah, I'll tell you what's natural. Go into the best uh, United States park that you can find and breathe the air, and hopefully you can still drink the water. That's a little iffy.
Yeah.
That's what's safe for your home. Anything beyond that, anything you apply to your skin or that's in your air or that you're using as a quote cleaning supply, or my goodness gracious, great balls of fire that you're eating in your food supply, non-organic food, is loaded with herbicides and pesticides and, you know, it could be GMO. So there is so much environmental contamination, even when it's organic. This stuff that they're spraying on the fields next to the organic farmer winds up on their food too.
Right.
So we don't have to be perfect at this. And it's not hard, and it's cheaper. You go through your home and you get rid of all that stuff. And you use, here's a good thing from a Facebook user. I'm such a germaphobe. Yeah, well, what does it take to properly clean your house in your body? Not a lot. Clear distilled vinegar, you could even go to peroxide, but you don't need a lot of stuff. So it's gonna make everything less expensive for you. You get clear laundry detergent, you get planetary approved everything. Dish soap, if you're using dishwashers, dishwasher soap, and you use clear distilled vinegar, and you can dilute it, which means you're really into some cheap cleaning products that work really well.
And they don't hurt
those air fresheners. They're not fresheners, they're chemicals in your cars, in your homes. I doubt that many in our audience would be actually using one of those things.
No, we've learned a lot here.
Clean up, go all cotton. You know, you go organic cotton if you can. Oh my, the amount that you can clean up your house. And what are you doing? You're taking yourself down to simple stuff that's safe. That's all. And you're building a home that is safe. It isn't outgassing toxins. And you don't have to be perfect about it. You just take it, make it a year's project. By the end of, let's say by the end of this year, as the new year chimes in, you're going to have a much, much less toxic house because you're getting rid of all your stuff and you're getting it down to distilled vinegar, the clear vinegar, and some baking powder, or maybe you'll even do a clear cleanser, because now they're making a lot of stuff as free from chemicals as they can get it, because they know what the public wants, and some of them even care about what the public needs.
Yes. Go figure.
Yes. Yeah, go figure.
Well, it's kind of nice. I mean,
yes, yeah, it is. It's great.
Absolutely. And I appreciate that you educate us on this, because it's pretty easy to just run in and buy something and use it, and it can do damage. So yeah, thank you for that. Distilled vinegar and baking soda. You can even brush your teeth with baking soda. So.
Absolutely, you can.
My mom taught me that long time ago. Okay, so I'm going to move on to question 2. We have a lot of questions. I'm sorry. I'm going to move on to question 2. I see everybody, and welcome. Okay, here's one that you and I talked of long ago, and it's a mystery to me anyway. Has anyone experienced hip pain after starting BHRT? And I'm wondering if it is time to increase my estrogen.
For the last 25 years of seeing women in menopause, I've never heard the story that hormones caused hip pain.
Right.
I've definitely heard the story that women who had hip pain, joint pain, back pain, muscle pain, had even been diagnosed with fibromyalgia, migraines, all kinds of pains, disappeared with proper hormonal treatment. Oh, was that exciting? And I've told this story before that I had a 55-year-old high-end real estate agent woman who was on OxyContin for pain. And to make a long story short, 5 weeks later, she had dropped the OxyContin cold. Her pain was gone after treatment with compounded bioidentical hormones.
Who
So
does
that's
that?
the usual case.
Yeah.
Both in medicine, anything is possible. But I'd sort of doubt it, that the hip pain would be caused. You can always experiment. And this is something I suggest for so many different things that can take place in menopause and during the treatment of menopause. If you suspect it's the treatment, stop the treatment. This is not like stopping a high blood pressure medication for some people, or it's not like stopping a diabetic stopping their insulin. Diabetics don't get to stop their insulin.
No.
The consequences are too severe and too fast, will appear too quickly. Stopping hormones on a dime, stopping them totally, there is no problem from that. There's long-term issues, and there's even the short-term issues of symptoms recurring, but it's not harmful to stop all your hormones cold, all your ovarian hormones. See what happens. So if you think the hip pain could be related from taking the hormones, stop them cold. If that hip pain goes away, restart the hormones. See if it comes back. There's so many different situations that can occur in the perimenopause and menopause that's how we handle it. We do a scientific experiment. Now, if the hip pain does seem to be related to your hormones, I check out the base. I mean, we invented and patented certified organic oils for a reason. The bases that some of these topical hormones are in, they're toxic solvents. So it could be the base. If it seems like you're getting pain from the restarting of the hormones, check out the base.
Yeah, the fillers. Yeah.
Well, there's the topical hormones, and again, it is definitely important to be taking estrogen the safest way that you possibly can, which is topically. They come in creams and gels, and well, of course, we recommend the organic oils.
Of course.
And those are applied to your skin or mucous membranes. Same as testosterone. I don't even think you can take testosterone orally. It could damage the liver. Taking estrogen orally works a lot of the time, but you got to use higher doses. And there's the possibility of promoting excessive coagulation and inflammation. No, don't do it. Many women put on the birth control pill had a side effect called a clot taking place in their lower extremities called thrombophlebitis, because oral estrogen is a problem that way. And so, use estrogen and testosterone topically. And the base that these topicals are put in does matter. The usual creams and gels are, again, strong solvents. Well, we don't like that. So we went and invented and patented organic oil delivery system. We carefully chose the oils and the mixture of the oils. We chose oils that are good for you.
Right. Kind of back to like cleaning your house.
Exactly.
You know what I mean? Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah. Yeah. And it feels good and it feels safe and it works. And I don't know, the organic oils. Yeah. I think they're great. Okay. Well, thank you for that. I'm going to skip a few and lead out with the last question that actually I had put third. So this question comes in and she says, when does menopause end? Please. I am 52. Shouldn't I be over this whole mess by now? 7 or 8, I know, right? 7 or 8 years ago, I had the Nova Shore done, which I believe is an
Yeah, I know what that
ablation,
is.
or yeah. And no periods to determine, uh, when I am done with now. I didn't know that I was going to be thrown into an early menopause. So do you feel that the NovaSure could have caused me to go into an early menopause? And do you know when this menopause is going to end for me? Help.
I got phenomenal news for you.
Yes.
It never ends for
That's
anybody.
right.
And I'm going to review the whole situation. It's an excellent question.
It's great.
Menopause is absolutely primarily and majorly about hormonal decline. Your ovaries, starting when you're an adolescent, start putting out these amazing, wonderful, crucial importance for most every cell in your whole body. You tend to think of the ovarian hormones, which are estrogen, progesterone, testosterone, and DHEA. You tend to think of them as being female related. Oh, yes, testosterone, premier female hormone. It's not a male hormone, it's a human hormone. And you tend to think of them as female related, but oh my God, they affect so many different cells in your body. I mean, your female organs, yes, they have estrogen receptor sites in there, and they have progesterone and testosterone receptor sites in there. That means they're actively interacting with those hormones. But so does your arteries, and so does your brain. Did I mention your brain? Did I say your brain, Carolyn? I sort of forgot if I mentioned brain. That estrogen receptor sites are in the brain, as are progesterone receptor sites and testosterone.
I think you said brain. Yeah.
You do think I did? Oh, okay. Thank you.
Yes, you're welcome.
In your bones, you don't have enough estrogen in your bones.
Them bones.
Them bones. And it's in every cell, almost every cell, tissue, and organ in your whole body. So your peak, your absolute maximum ovarian hormone output occurs when you're 20 plus or minus 2 years. From that moment on, your hormones decline. Peak when you're 20, decline. When you're 30, you don't have the same amount of hormone levels. When you're 40, you don't have them. And then somewhere in the 30s or 40s or 50s, there's a major decline that occurs. And that's when the ovaries stop producing. That's not the end game. You continue to decline because you have other ways to produce these hormones, but only minor amounts. They continue to decline for your whole life. They never let up. And you know, the interesting thing is, your pituitary gland, that's really being communicated to by your brain, doesn't like it. When a woman starts getting major ovarian hormone decline, your pituitary gland all of a sudden starts putting out these humongous levels, relatively speaking, of ovary stimulating hormones. Wake up, little Susie. Wake up.
Do you want me to sing it?
Yeah. I'd like you to cut it first, right? You're not going to do it.
Wake up, the little. Okay, sorry.
There you go. And it never stops. It never lets up. And that means in an 80-year-old, her follicle stimulating hormone and her luteinizing hormone are just sky high. I don't think that's so hot for the pituitary. And there is medical literature out there questioning, is it safe? There's Dr. Berkson out there.
I know. I didn't want to interrupt, but yeah. Hi, Dr. Berkson, and hi, everybody.
So that pituitary gland never lets up. And I think that's, I don't know what that's like for the pituitary gland. Seems like to me it would be a strain. And what's that saying? A woman's body, from what I can surmise, never wants her ovarian hormones to be low. Now, having said all that, there are seminal clinical events that take place in 75% of women and not in 25%. Let me address the 25%. Even though a woman's hormone levels are declining, they're not getting raucous symptoms. Like 75% of women get very intense symptoms. They start getting minor symptoms. A certain number of women get minor symptoms in their 30s. They'll start noticing symptoms that they're sort of a surprise to them. They're starting to get a return of PMS, uterine cramps, breast tenderness that they hadn't seen until they were early on in their teens.
Right.
And they start getting mood issues and sleep issues, but they're subtle and they creep up on you, even from the loss of testosterone. A woman who's used to making 50 or 50,000 decisions in a day really easily and just carrying on her life starts getting a little indecisive. The libido starts declining. So in any world of anything, there's things that are mild, moderate, or tremendously obvious and intense. And 75% of women get symptoms. And so they know it when they're going into the perimenopause or menopause. And I think they're the luckiest ones, really. Even though their life gets disrupted, their sleep gets terribly disrupted, their mood. But the advantage of it are these are the women who are really seeking what in the heck is going on out here. And does anybody know anything about what I need to do about this? Because I can't live with this, or I don't want to live with this. 75% of the women get symptoms that stop their life for a great, useful reason. And they're the ones who get motivated. And many of them get on hormones and stay on them for their whole life. And so they're very thankful that they got these raucous symptoms. 25% of women don't have symptoms. And they go, what the heck's going on there? All these women are complaining about menopause. My menopause was super easy. It was totally simple. They're the ones I'm more concerned about because they still get the bone loss. They still get the vaginal atrophy. They still wind up with the bladder issues. They still lose their muscles. They still make the transition to canes, walkers, and then wheelchairs. But it creeps up on them and they don't know it, and they don't know that it was some hormonal decline. And then there's this other set of women. They go through a period of perimenopause and early menopause that's rough and really disruptive. And then for some reason, I don't understand, it just stops. And they start adjusting and they go, I'm through menopause.
All right.
And I'm also concerned about those women because they're not through menopause. Those hormones continue to decline. The decline they've already undergone really affects their bones, their arteries, their brain, their vagina, their libido, their energy, their bladder. They still are, even though they've become asymptomatic, they still undergo these declines because so many cells, tissues, and organs of a woman's body, or for that matter, a man as it relates to testosterone, a man's body, depend on these hormones. And let's just take it to the bottom line. You lose testosterone, you're going to get, almost certainly you're going to get sarcopenia. You're going to lose your muscles. And it's going to lead to, in many people, canes, then walkers, then wheelchairs. That's a leave home situation. And when it's taking place in a woman, the muscle that holds up the bladder, the levator ani, that's sort of weakening as well. And that's between that and vaginal atrophy. You get to go into adult diapers and you can reach a point where your family can't take care of you. That's a very, very critical time. Why do I keep mentioning this? Because this is one of the main services of going on hormones. You don't have to think about alleviating hot flashes if you don't have them, but you do want to attend to those muscles in that bladder. That's going to make a huge difference to you. Now, there's women who go through a rough period and then the symptoms go away and they say, again, repeating, phew, I'm through menopause. This is terrific. Not so. If the only thing I can say to you to motivate you is still you want to attend to things. So
yes,
I said it in the beginning and I'm going to say it again. There is no zero end to menopause. And menopause is primarily about loss of hormones. And yes, the great news is it's 2021, or if it was 1,000 years ago, You still could do something about it. For the last 1,000 years, the elite, the aristocratic end of this, they knew aristocrats were doing something about it in China 1,000 years ago. And since the 40s, there's been hormones available. They're not the ones I would prescribe, but they've been available. So, and there was 18 million American women. 40% of American women in 2002 were on hormones. How'd they figure that out? They figured it out. They had symptoms. They went to their gynecologist or their doctor, and they got some treatment until everyone got scared about treatment. So the good news is you can do something fantastic about it for your whole life, and you never stop taking them. Menopause may never end, but everything that was being lost because of low hormones, you can address for your whole life, just like I do. But I'm a man, but I need this. I know it. Testosterone every day.
Yep.
Religion.
Yep. I have a woman who I believe in. She's like, "Are you serious? It never ends." you know. And that's a question that I really.
Well, all that should say is, and you can do something wonderful about it. And download our book. Carolyn's made the book available on Ins and Outs of Menopause. And it'll tell you, it'll give you a lot of background about what to do about it. And you can do something about it. You should, when I go down the street, I can tell the women in their 70s and 80s and 90s that are on hormones and the ones that are not. You can see it.
Mm-hmm.
You know what? You interview these women. They like it. They like it a lot. They wouldn't dream of going without their hormones. They've said it to me many times. Ain't no way I'm gonna ever stop taking hormones.
I'll say
it. What will you say? What are you?
I will stand on a car with a megaphone if I have to. And I will say I will never stop taking my hormones ever, 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 ever. No. I mean, symptom relief, yeah. I mean, that's a biggie. But protecting your body is really a biggie, you know? So, as we've talked, I've said that I've heard many times women say, "Oh, I'm so glad I'm through that."
Yeah, right. I'm so glad we get to address that question. I think there was a NovaSure. I want to go on to a different question here. It's about ablation.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not a gynecologist, and they are the ones who are extremely knowledgeable about ablation. And so I can't comment about whether I think ablation is medically necessary or not. And I do know that there are instances where the best choice is doing something major about excessive bleeding, even down to the moment of hysterectomy. So many of those hysterectomy and ablations could be totally prevented by picking up in your early 30s or your mid 30s when you're losing progesterone. Because so much of the uterine fibroids that cause excessive bleedings, so many of them could be prevented by balancing your estrogen properly, by augmenting progesterone from the outside, by applying it to your skin, for example. And so much of the uterine problems, excessive bleeding, are caused by hormonal imbalance. It's one of our main missions is to try and get to women, and any woman on this particular Facebook Live, get to your daughters, get to your granddaughters. They can pick up on this in their 30s. They don't have to have these dramatic uterine procedures. And, I wish ablations weren't being done. But again, I'm not a gynecologist, and I know that they do have to deal with excessive bleeding. It's a big deal. Some women can bleed so much they drop their red blood cell count to the point where they're having trouble functioning. So I know that the gynecologists have a real challenge there once that bleeding has started. But ablation, it sort of, I don't know enough about ablation to hear a possible complication that you go into menopause. I can't exactly see the reason why you would, but it's a strong procedure to be able to ablate. What does that mean? That means you remove that uterine lining,
right,
in some form or another. And I'm not sure how they do it even, but that's an intense procedure. It has possible complications. So again, an ounce of prevention is worth 32 tons of cure. I've done the math. 32 tons, an ounce of prevention is worth 32 tons of cure. Get the on progesterone as early as you can, and you'll prevent so much of those excessive bleeding and fibroid issues. That is why women get ablations and why women have hysterectomies. So, yeah, do it.
yeah, yeah. Well, the times they are a-changing.
And ablation makes it tricky for me as a hormone prescriber. It doesn't, in any sense, rule it out. You deal with any situation we run into. We always work with any woman, no matter what her situation, no matter what her age is. It's like any kind of figure out something, spend enough time and give it enough attention, and you figure it always can happen. But ablations are a little tricky hormonally to figure out. So we go by hormonal symptoms and we figure it out. So it's not that big of a deal. And you can even do some testing to know, well, there's no signal of blood bleeding. Well, there's blood tests that tell us, yeah, okay, we don't need bleeding to know what your hormone levels are.
You're right.
So
right.
don't go too far afield there. The remedy is hormones and getting it right.
Right.
And here's your job. I'm sorry, I want to say one more thing. Here's your job, no matter what your symptoms are. Go shopping, find someone who cares tremendously about getting this right. This is going to be a professional healthcare provider. This is someone who's licensed who can write a prescription for these hormones. That means you're dealing with a medical doctor or an osteopathic physician or a naturopathic doctor. You're dealing with a physician or a nurse practitioner. And in some cases, a physician's assistant. I know a physician's assistant who's most knowledgeable about this. They can write a prescription. And sometimes you're dealing with indirectly with a prescribing compounding pharmacist, but there ain't no others. You're not going to be able to get it. So that's who you got to go shopping for. And if you ask around, some friend of yours or someone in your community is going to have found someone that they think is great. And you want to go to, that's where your shopping begins. So someone who's expert at hormones, someone who's taken this on as a major interest, because there's a lot to it. The menopause method, we're efforting to make it a board certified specialty. We already believe that we have done standard of care. And might I say, join the menopause method.
Absolutely.
Top of the mountain, in my humble, non-humble opinion.
Well, in my humble and non-humble opinion, too.
But at any rate, your job, find an expert. Once you find an expert that you can trust, it's just a matter of time. They'll get you into the proper hormone levels. They'll know how to test them via 24-hour urine hormone test, no other test, 24-hour urine hormone test. That's one of the things that you can use to see if you're in the hands of an expert. I know everybody will have other opinions, but I'm going to give you my best shot. Your job is to go shopping, find that expert.
Absolutely. Makes all the difference in the world.
Mm-hmm.
For sure. And lots of people, agreeing. So thank you for that answer. Definitely doing the doctor shopping. Boy, we know that. And we do know your opinions, and they are strong. And you know what? Very deserving, as far as I'm concerned. You deserve your opinions, for sure. You've done the due diligence, that without a doubt. Okay, so this question I've broken up. I was given a 0.025 E patch for osteoporosis in menopause, I cannot take any other meds for osteoporosis. I was also given a prescription for progesterone to take 10 days each month. They're not sure which 10 days, so I'm taking a compounded P progesterone each night, 25 milligrams. The question is, can I keep taking this progesterone nightly?
Osteoporosis. You're on the right track. You've taken the first step. Now, these are not my favorite methods. Let's start with the patch. You know, for those who have insurance and can't really access the organic oils, patch is not a bad solution. Question on the 0.025 patch is it going to be enough? Medical literature says for some women that is enough to prevent osteoporosis, to prevent bone loss. And it's a major player. And boy, if you can get treatment with estrogen as early as you possibly can, certainly when your periods stop, you want to get on treatment with estrogen, that's for sure. So that's the estrogen part. My favorite estrogen is topical applications that include not only estradiol, that's what's in the patch, but also estriol. In fact, there's 4 times as much usually of estriol as there is estradiol. There's reasons for this, and you can read all about it in Happy Healthy Hormones. Just download that book. That's the estrogen component of bone loss. The progesterone component, yes, you can take 50 milligrams of progesterone orally. It's going to do you some good. And progesterone is the only biochemical that I know that actually stimulates the cells that lay down new bone, osteoblasts. So yeah, take that. Is that the optimal way to take progesterone? Is 50 milligrams your right dose? Well, it's a great start. And it may land as 50 milligrams. There's many women in my practice that 50 milligrams is their favorite dose. And that tests out. But we're very careful to individualize the progesterone dose, both the progesterone route. We start with transdermal. And if we're not getting enough progesterone into our body, we'll switch to oral because we can get higher doses of progesterone in there. And then we eventually test you out. Bones. Estrogen, okay, you got a good start on that estradiol patch. Not ideal, and you may need more. And in fact, the 0.050, the 50 microgram patch, is a little more common. And then testosterone and DHEA, androgens, they're very important in bone health. And they're very important in muscle health, which is an important component of bone health. You want to get that testosterone right as well, and you're not getting testosterone. And DHEA, you want to get that right, and thyroid. And here, because thyroid relates to bones too. So I'm saying bones is about more than just the patch and progesterone. In fact, there's a chapter on bone health in Happy Healthy Hormones. And I talk about all the moving parts which relate to diet and digestion and chewing your food, lots of stuff in there. Now, for someone who actually has demonstrated bone loss, we're very rigorous on this one. For one thing, if a bone density test shows that you've lost some bone, well, we want to do a follow-up test to know, are you actively losing bone still, or was it something that really occurred in the past and now we're just trying to mop it up and make sure you don't lose any more? And we do a urine test called DPD, and also we can do a blood test, deoxypyridinolone, because the bone sounds like it's a steady thing, it's hard as a rock. It's actively metabolizing as well. That means old bone is getting broken down and new bone is being formed. And when the old bone is broken down, some of it winds up in the urine. And we should see a certain amount of old bone metabolites showing up in the urine, a certain amount of deoxypyridinolone. And if we don't, or we see too much, you're still actively breaking bone down. So the rigor of our process ramps up. And we make sure that we give you enough stuff so that you're not actively losing bone if you are. And I name the stuff. It's the proper estrogens formulation, progesterone, testosterone, DHEA, thyroid, and nutrition, and digestion and assimilation. All of those things matter if you're actively losing bone. So you got a great start on it, and it matters how much what your bone status is. And I like to linger on this one because you don't want to find out 30 years from now that your bones have gotten very frail. And you want to do your very best that you possibly can do to get it early on. And hormones is a very important part of it. It's not the whole thing. There's a certain amount of bone loss that occurs because of excessive stress. Yeah. And it's not the excessive stress. We all have stress. Stress is part of human life. It's an important part of human life. It's built into the design, as odd as that may sound. But it does matter how you respond to stress, because there's an intense biology that occurs during stress. And that's whether you're very nice and you're leading a very nice and normal life, but you're stressed out of your gourd internally. You're still triggering the biochemistry of it. Or someone who looks like you're stressed all the time. They're the same thing. If you're repressing the stress, you're repressing your response to the stress, or you're acting it out. The biology is the same. It's fight or flight. And at the vanguard of fight or flight is cortisol. And cortisol dissolves bones, so to speak. Oh, yes, it does. Remember, I can picture this young man. He was at 28 years old. He was in a hospital bed in the University of Michigan Hospital when I was a senior medical student. This man had a staghorn calculus. That means his kidneys had built up a stone so big that it was blocking the outflow of urine. He was in the hospital. How do you get a kidney stone? The young man had been on steroids, which and what we're really talking about is cortisol, or an artificial version of it, prednisone, for years and years and years, and it was taking out his bones. And the calcium in his bones was forming a kidney stone. So what am I saying? There's this whole improve your technology on how you respond to stress so that you don't trigger the fight or flight stuff and lead it with cortisol. So I've really done a leap and bound, like when we used to sit at the lake's edge and throw flat stones on the surface, and it would bounce many, many times because there was many bounces. Well, there's many bounces involved in osteoporosis. Please go to Happy Healthy Hormones. And the moral of the story is the same thing. It all comes down to the same thing. It's like one thing you need to know from this Facebook Live. It's only one thing you need to achieve, no matter how technically wild my answers are. You have one job. Shop. Find thee an expert in hormones until your bones feel like, oh God, I've landed. I trust this person. And they really know what they're doing. And we're in a process to get this right. That's your only job. All these different questions that come up, that's your job. Find that expert.
Well, thank you for that. It is doable, and I know that for sure. Okay, yay, 10 minutes. So this question actually goes on, but I think you've really kind of answered it. She says, so it's okay to take all this progesterone with only this 0.025 amount of estrogen. And she then goes on to say, too, that her doctor wants her to stop all of her hormones for 5 days each month. So there are two questions in there. You pretty well answered.
I like answering that one.
Okay.
There's rationale behind that, because these hormones are fat soluble. Like if you take too many B vitamins, you're not going to get into a B vitamin overdose.
Right.
Your body will realize it and you'll pee them out, and you're not going to be accumulating B vitamins in your body. That's not true for fat soluble vitamins like vitamin A and vitamin D, for example. You can get toxic from these fat soluble vitamins because they will store in your fat tissue.
Yes.
You can build up too much of it, and people who build up too much vitamin A, they turn yellow. And vitamin D, that's not okay to build up too much vitamin D. And steroid hormones, these ovarian hormones, are fat soluble, and they too will build up in your cells if you're on an excessive dose.
Right.
Most women being treated with hormones will be able to feel an excessive dose. And you know what? A lot will not. That's why we say go shopping for an expert, because an expert is going to be able to detect when you're on a dose, an excessive dose. I looked at a hormone test, a 24-hour urine hormone test result on a woman that I've been treating for 15 years. And for the first time, she tested, she gets an annual 24-hour urine hormone test, and for the first time, she tested with way excessive androgens. Her estrogens were perfect, her progesterone was perfect, and her androgens were super high. So
Whoa.
you got to have and she's feeling great. And
Yeah.
we'll adjust it. Her annual appointment's about to come up, and we'll make the adjustments, and she'll be fine. Now, the reason I'm saying this is there's a reason why your doctor would want you to stop once a month. And here's the ritual we do. I'll describe it from our end. Once we get a woman adjusted up to where we think she's in the zone, her optimal zone based on her individual situation, we have her stop all hormones. And we usually have her stop on the first of the month because it's easier to remember. She's not having periods, so we have her stop on the first of the calendar month. And we tell her to stop for 1 day, 2 days, 3 days, 4 days. We're going to determine how long to stop, because many women will, once their hormone levels get too low, they'll start developing a symptom like a hot flash. We joke and we say, wear your hormone bottles in a holster. And the moment you get your first symptom of hormonal insufficiency, such as a warm rush, pull out your hormones and put them on right away. Now, it's just a joke. It's not that urgent a thing.
Pour that whole bottle right on there.
Yeah, the whole bottle. There's a strategy for it.
Yeah. Don't do that.
I can realize that some women feel so desperate they'd like to pour the whole bottle on there. I think that's probably where that's coming from. But don't pour the whole bottle on there. Just
No.
So now, let's say that the first day they stopped their hormones, they felt fine. And the second day they felt fine. And the third, and the night of the second day, they woke up feeling warm. Oh, old familiar warm rush, middle of the night. Don't like that. We don't need them to stop for 2 full days. We don't need them to get the warm rush from thenceforth on into perpetuity. We just have them stop for 1 day. And it's a gross way of saying, by 2 days, by the night of the second day, you were having insufficiency symptoms. You must have drained your body and you weren't building up because it was pretty delicate there. All it took was 2 days and a night before you got a symptom. So you're not building up. So once a month, stop for 1 day, because we don't need you to go so far as to get a symptom. That's not valuable for you. We just need this gross way to believe that you're not accumulating hormones. A week's a little long. In my practice, a week would be too disruptive for too many women. They would get symptomatic. And then there's the women who don't get symptomatic. So we are careful about that one too, and we base it also on the 24-hour urine hormone test. So the stopping once a month, there's rationale, but we're very careful about how long we recommend to stop, because we don't want to throw a woman into symptoms, and then there's the women who don't get symptoms. So, but I like that you're your physician is thinking in terms of steroid or hormones can accumulate, I'm going to protect you from that. I'm going to have you stop for a week. We usually, the women in our practice, they usually stop for 1 day or 2 days. Very rarely do they stop for 3 days, because most of our women are so optimized, they're so dialed into the zone that they don't need to stop for 3 days.
Got it. Okay. Well, thank you for that. Yeah, we have a few minutes left, and this is kind of a long question for you to answer, but maybe you this word quickly always comes up, and that is like
I'll
the
do it.
wrong
You watch
word.
me go, Carolyn Shapiro.
I'm
I'm going to bring it in on time.
gonna do it. So, what is a normal thyroid panel, please? Thyroid is so very confusing.
Yes, there's the way we test for thyroid is 2 ways. We listen to symptoms. There's 3 ways. When it's possible to do a physical exam, we do a physical exam. When people are getting hypothyroid or functionally hypothyroid, it speaks loudly. Your body loves thyroid hormones, and when you're not on sufficient thyroid hormone, if the thyroid gland isn't putting out adequate thyroid hormone levels, which is very common, I'd have to guess that 2/3 of women and men eventually become functionally hypothyroid over the course of time, and in the perimenopausal age demographic. So much can be learned by symptoms and sign and a basal body temperature, or if you're starting to get constipated, or something called the bowel transit time. These things are so useful clinically. Then we do like to do thyroid tests, and here's the thyroid tests that you should be doing. A TSH, a free T3, a free T4, a reverse T3, and a total T3. Now, why I suspect that someone would say that thyroid testing is confusing, it's not confusing when you really know your stuff. It makes perfect sense. It's wonderful. And it's wonderful that we can do this exquisite fine-tuned testing, even by blood testing. Absolutely it is. But until you understand what makes thyroid testing confusing is you're also measuring a pituitary hormone called thyroid stimulating hormone. Because when your brain reads that you don't have enough thyroid hormone floating around in your body, it tries to stimulate the thyroid gland. And the pituitary gland is capable of doing that. It starts increasing the amount of thyroid stimulating hormones to wake up this gland and get it to produce more. So one of the ways that we test low thyroid, insufficient thyroid hormone, is we look at that TSH, which is rising. It's getting high. So until you understand that concept, it's an inverse relationship.
Right.
The higher the TSH, thyroid stimulating hormone, your body is hungry for thyroid, and that's why your pituitary is putting out extra TSH. Of those thyroid tests I mentioned, the only one I mentioned was pituitary, was the TSH. That's what confuses people. All the rest were thyroid testing. So it's not confusing. It's very clear cut. Just order this, ask your physician to order this list. Free T3, free T4, reverse T3, and TSH. And then a new kid on the block, relatively new, because there's an article in the wonderful holistic journal called the Townsend Letter.
Yes.
That talks about the value of checking out the ratio between total T3 and free T3. And I had heard this a long time ago, but the doctor who wrote this article was so clear about it this time that I'm now adding total T3 just to see if he's right. He's probably right, because this is an expert in thyroid testing.
It's a great article.
Yeah. So that's the panel. Order that panel. Oh, but then you've got to find someone to interpret it, because someone has really got to know their numbers. Like when I see a free T3 of 2.5, I go, well, that's in the reference range, but that's not the free T3 of a 20-year-old.
Right.
They're running up around 3.1, and I'm seeing a 2.5. My sniffer goes, are they getting enough? Or if I see a TSH is 0.9, I'm sorry, erase that. If I see a TSH of 2.0, right in the middle of the reference range, what's the problem? I go, ooh, are we getting a new moon rising here? Or really, it's not the moon. Are we getting a TSH that's rising? It's getting a little, even though it's within normal limits, that's a little bit more of a workout than a young person would do. Same with free T4. So you need to know your stuff. It's not enough to just do the testing. You need someone who's been well educated. The longest segment in our Menopause Method educational program that all of our Menopause Method experts go through is the thyroid segment. It's an hour and a half. That's because we zoom in to these intricacies of thyroid.
So you're giving
12 hours.
Sniffers.
So there's a lot of moving parts there. The job for you becomes the same.
Right.
It took me years to figure out thyroid and to learn how to do it properly. You want to find yourself someone who's a medical professional who can write prescriptions. That's going to be a physician or a nurse practitioner or a PA, in some cases, a prescribing compounding pharmacist. You're going to want to find someone who cares about this so much that they've just really gotten educated. In fact, they're an expert at it. In fact, you can pretty much guess that they are if that's all they're doing. They decided to specialize in it. Or you got someone in the Menopause Method, one of our professionals, because that's what they're doing. They're in that to become absolute masters, absolute experts at treating women in menopause with compounded bioidentical hormones. Did I come in under time? No. I didn't.
Well, very close because you brought us home, Dr. R. You did indeed. Yes, you did. And very well so, as is always. And I really want to thank you, of course, which I always do. And I want to thank all the women who have come up with all the fabulous questions. I get fabulous questions, and I always get fabulous answers too. So it's a win-win. I have a huge passion for menopause, as you well know.
Yes,
and
I do.
Yeah, it's innate. I don't know how the heck that happened, but it did. And I love it. And I want to be 100% expert. And I agree with you so wholeheartedly that, that expert is really important for the woman who is, needing the expert. And boy, you let us know that. And very well so. So, oh my God, our time is up. This hour goes by so fast. And I guess we're going to talk again on Thursday. I don't guess, I know we're going to talk again on Thursday. And I'll give you these questions and we'll answer them and we'll just keep it moving and we're going to save the world. What do you think?
And I.
Yep, it's a team. It's a team
effort. I think
effort.
it's going to take billions to save this world, but let's get a billion. Let's enroll a few billion others doing all the things that everybody does.
Just grows exponentially. You'll see. Magic happens. It does. I want to wish you a really, really good day. And thank you, ladies, for coming up. For everybody, have a fabulous day. We'll see you again on Thursday. And adios.
Adios.